This is Radar on the Radar Entertainment Blog, coming at you with another edition of Movie Reviews Observation number 175. We've gotten up to a big number of 175. Sorry for the long wait due to Jewish holidays, my paying day job, and a wedding. I have not had the chance, plus the fourth thing is not having movies, because I had to give back a dozen movies and haven't gotten any new movies to watch as well. So the last 4 movies I watched were, at least 2 of them were pretty big time. One is Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. I feel like that was a good third movie because it was cool that in this movie that Michelle Pfeiffer, we explain what happened to her when she was in that small world, you know, when you shrink down even further and go through all of it. I don't need to go into the comic book nerd talk and the science, whatever, and know about her past that involves, like, Bill Murray being in a Marvel movie. Because I don't think Bill Murray would be in a Marvel movie back in the heyday of him on SNL or even the 2000s. Like, that's just interesting that they had him in this movie. I like they brought back Corey Stoll character and made him that machine by the bad guy. So it was, you know, full circle with that character. More Michael Douglas action scenes at his age was pretty cool. The next age of Avengers where there's supposedly going to be a female Iron Man, Hawkeye's daughter, Black Panther's sister. There's more Marvels, whatever. You know, Captain America passed away, so obviously there's a new Captain America. So there's different, like, things. They made Thor's longtime girlfriend, Natalie Portman, a Thor like figure. So they're handling the mantle over the people. So it also had the fact that his daughter, he didn't know, has been practicing being Ant Girl or Ant Woman, whatever, behind his back and stuff. This whole other universe where there's like all these living creatures. And I thought it was really cool that William Jackson Harper from The Good Place, I think he's famous for, obviously, I think, Broadway musicals and stuff, but that was cool to see him. David Dashman, who was in the second Suicide Squad movie. He was in the TV show Flash. He was also in Gotham. He's voiced a lot of superheroes or supervillains. Like, you just name it. He was the villain in MacGyver's remake show. Like, he gets around. And the other thing is full circle because if you remember that the first Ant-Man movie, right? It was him with his crew of guys, and his crew had Michael Pena, who's always really funny. It had, I think, was it T.I. or was it Kid Cudi? Yeah, it was T.I. as a friend in his group and stuff like that. And you know who was also in that group? David Dastmalchian, whatever his name is. He was in his group. So it's like full circle to bring him back to voice this alien character that you can't see, like they did with Corey Stoll. So I thought that was cool to bring that full circle with some of the stuff in the movie. And obviously, there's some other actors and little things going on. And of course, it was a big year for him, you know, Jonathan Majors to be in Creed 3 and to be in Ant-Man and the Wasp number 3. Like, I thought he was a pretty good villain, you know, not to spoil it because it's been out for a while. It was only new on DVD in May, so it's not like it's new. But his villain role I thought was interesting. I just wasn't like, cool. He's a guy who happened to be sentenced to this part, blah, 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 and he's not the worst of the worst. It's also PG-13, so it's not rated R inappropriate. This one was under 2 hours minus any post-credit scene or regular credits, which I have liked about the Ant-Man franchise. They don't make them too long, so that was positive. I just thought the plot was okay. I didn't like Evanna Lilly's short haircuts standing next to Paul Rudd. They look like brother and sister, just kind of weird, but they're a love interest. You know, the post-credit scenes that have like Loki and Owen Wilson was pretty interesting. I don't know if you have to watch the Loki's TV show to figure that out. And the whole Jonathan Majors having other versions, and that has to be coming out in the future. That will be something cool going forward. But yeah, I liked it. I don't think any of these Marvel movies from the Avengers franchise of the recent Marvel movies are bad movies. I just think the first one is the best one in this franchise. Then I want to thank DC Animated Universe for continuing to come out with usually quality movies. Some of them have been rated R. Some of them have been PG-13. I like the idea of different time periods of them, including like Batlash and Jonah Hex characters, and them being put in the past. You know, like a Green Arrow looking character, and then Roger Cross voices the character where I thought could have been Jon Stewart or Mr. Terrific in another time period, or Black Canary, Hawkgirl in another time period, or where Superman and Agent Faraday, which was voiced by like Frank Grillo, which was pretty cool. I thought, you know what, that's pretty cool. And they kept Jensen Ackles and Darren Criss, who've been voicing them. I'm not sure if Stiana Katic was also voiced them, but then you throw in the whole Mongol, and then they had Martian Manhunter, and Lobo was in the movie. So they had a good amount of characters from the whole DC universe. I just don't like the fact that, like the DC movie that I watched earlier in the summer, that was like a mix of anime characters with the DC character, that it's a two-part movie, and I had no warning. So that's my only critique, is that issue with it, is that critiquing it where it's like it ends on a cliffhanger, there's really nothing that wraps it up, and they're going to make a sequel, and they weren't really the best at identifying certain characters. But for the most part, like a lot of them, you watch it, it's not too long, it's pretty good, it's got an interesting plot, the animation isn't bad. Ever since they decided to make like standalone movies, they've been pretty good. And then I'm going to skip to the best movie at the end. The next movie that I watched was this thing called Detective Night, and apparently it was new in last November. It's the Bruce Willis quest over, I guess, I don't know how often he filmed these movies. Let's say he filmed them like 5-6 years, because you know people film movies years in advance before they actually come out. So let's say he filmed these years ago when he knew he had this illness. And as I mentioned, me and my ex-roommate, who's one of my closest friends, when he saw me watching Bruce Willis movies by myself, or had him out for the library and watched them, he was like, no, I want to watch every Bruce Willis movie. I'm a huge diehard. I love Bruce Willis. I'm like, okay, we'll watch every single Bruce Willis movie that comes out. And there's been plenty. There's been so much that there's even been like sequel to most of the movies that I've watched with Bruce Willis, even though they don't even need a sequel. So I have in front of me the sequels, which are called Detective Night Redemption and Detective Night Independence. So they're even more about him being this detective who checkered past of not coloring inside the lines, getting revenge, and then moving him to New York, to LA, like all this stuff. And they give Lachlan Moreno from, you know, Riverdale, who was the Black Hood. He's been in also a lot of Bruce Willis movies as his detective partner. And usually these movies, they're 80 to 90 minutes and sometimes an hour and 40, so they're not long, so I enjoyed that. But a lot of time, the plots are really dumb. Sometimes the cinematography is bad. You know, it's just the dialogue is stupid and unneeded, and you could tell that they zoom in on other people's hands and legs, or punching or shooting gun. He's sitting a lot, not doing a lot, so I felt like this one, he must have filmed this one earlier than the rest, even though they're all like 2023 release dates on DVD for the most part, or 2022, and that he did a lot more walking and shooting and doing stuff than he did in other movies. So that was nice to see that. But we'll have to see the progression when it comes to second and third movie. And I also thought this plot wasn't bad. You have him that ties back to an old bookie being the villain. And I've seen this guy mostly in Bruce Willis movie. And this, you know, guy who seems like, I forgot where from Africa he's from, but he's his partner. But that's interesting, or working with him. They didn't really go over that much. And I did like the plot of the group of people who are under the thumb of the bookie, where you get I don't want to spoil it, but you got a former gymnast and a former baseball player apparently, and a former football player, which is the other lead of the movie. Even though Lachlan Moreno and this Jimmy Jean Louise are in the front, I feel like the leads are Bruce Willis, the bookie, and the head of the crew that's doing all this, the bad stuff for him. Lachlan Moreno barely is in the movie, spoiler alert. And this Jimmy Jean Louise is somewhat in the movie, but it's just like, the other people are important. I've seen the girl before, and I've seen this dude before, but what the most interesting thing was, Wayne Gretzky, the greatest hockey player of all time, his son is an actor, and he wasn't bad in this movie, and I feel like he's been in other Bruce Willis movies I didn't realize. And there's a whole Gretzky tie-in in the movie, too, where they're trying to steal a rookie Wayne Gretzky card. Like, you know this, they're robbers, so doesn't matter what they're stealing. It's not a spoiler, they're just stealing, but I thought that was cool. So this has been better than some of the straight-to-DVD Bruce Willis movies, and I'm hoping the second and third are as good. Lastly, the last movie that I watched the other one I watched was Dragon Ball Super Superhero. And we remember the last one was them like fighting Frieza before, and then the other one was fighting Broly. And sometimes you go back to Dragon Ball Z or Super with these movies, and those events happen, but they're a little bit different, and the animation seems a little more crisp, and it's a better final production and stuff. So I thought that's some of the subtle differences. It's barely an hour and 40 minutes, and the plot is the guy who's running at the Red Ribbon Army, you know, as a front, recruits the doctor who made the androids in Cell in the first place, and they recruit his grandson, and they use him, and they manipulate him in a way that comes back to ruin the Earth, and all this other stuff. And there was cool new androids that they were dealing with. They brought back Cell because they're just rehashing like they did with Frieza, and now with Cell and androids and stuff. But my takeaway was I thought with this threat coming to Earth, that now the Broly's on their side, even though they're training with Broly, Vegeta and Goku with Beerus and Whis, that maybe, just maybe, when a threat comes to Earth, that Goku and Vegeta, two of the 5 main characters in the whole movie, franchise and TV and anime, would be in the movie more, and that Broly would be a huge part. So that was a little bit annoying. But Piccolo is my favorite character, so it's a movie more about Piccolo trying to save the Earth and learning how far he can go with his power. Gohan, who we all know stopped being a warrior, is a father, not just a father, he's a scholar, he's like a scientist. Like he's researching stuff, and how often is he actually training? And he's got to help save the Earth because we all love Krillin, but he's not, he's probably one of the strongest humans with Master Roshi and Yamcha and Tien, even though he's got 3 eyes. Like, yeah, you'll make fun of Yamcha, but those stronger humans. Then you obviously know that Trunks and Goten are old in the movie, but they're still not polished. And Krillin's wife, Android 18, is in the movie, but there's no Android 17. And of course, I got a Bulma in the movie, and the story also is like Piccolo training Gohan as a kid when Goku died the first time. He's training Pan, the daughter. So I feel like it's good character progression that he's continuing to mold the young Saiyan. I just wish Goten and Trunks had more training, but whatever. I enjoyed it. It's the best thing to do when you're a child and you watch the Dragon Ball franchise, even Dragon Ball GT as you got older, that as an adult, that Dragon Ball Super came out, and then they've made like 3 movies from it as well, that you can enjoy a childhood classic as an adult. I'm not talking about them remaking Rugrats or continue to remake Rocky and Bullwinkle or Snoopy, or you name it, or Garfield or whatever, Alvin the Chipmunk. You can just keep going. I'm talking about like a continuation of the story that we can watch. That's all. So again, if you're a big fan of the Dragon Ball franchise or anime, this was great. If you're a fan of Bruce Willis, you're going to watch every movie like my friend does, but this one's actually really good. Justice League War isn't the greatest DC animated movie, especially with the cliffhanger, but I enjoyed it. And Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, like, it's not the worst, it's not a bad movie, it's just not the best movie, but it's watchable and it's not too long. Thanks again for listening to another edition of Movie Reviews and Observations. Like, wow, I talked for 13 minutes about 4 movies, but that just proves I watched 4 interesting, compelling movies to watch instead of watching 5 to 7 movies where they suck. You know what I mean? Thank you for listening to Movie Reviews and Observations number 175 on the Reddit blog. I'm Radar. See you guys next time.